there was another tweet that the president had on Saturday. I want to read this for you. President Trump wrote about Rob Porter, who had resigned after two of his ex-wives had claimed abuse. He writes, "People's lives are being shattered and destroyed by mere allegations. Some are true, some are false, some are old, some are new. There is no recovery for someone falsely accused, life and career gone." Do you think that there is, he says here, is there no such thing any longer as due process? What do you make of the fact that the president continues to defend somebody who's had these serious allegations against him?
It seems to me politically problematic. This is the second time that the president has focused on Mr. Porter and not really mentioned the allegations at all made by two ex-wives. Now, I can't pronounce guilt or innocence, but for the president to only seem to see this through the prism of his own staff, I think is a political problem. But it does show President Trump has this propensity to get himself involved in very hot-button issues. This was a thing that was not a controversy centred around him at the start, and he's very much inserted himself into it.
Do you think the president's pushing back with the Me Too movement with these comments?
Yeah, I think he is, and I think he's playing to a more socially conservative constituency that looks somewhat suspiciously at the Me Too movement, or at least believes that it has gone too far. Now, how that will work politically, I think, is open to question, but it is clearly a tweet that is primarily about Rob Porter, but is also casting scepticism on the broader movement.
I want to shift gears and ask you about Chief of Staff Kelly there. He infamously once said that he is the person who controls the flow of information to the president. What's his original sin here? Is it protecting, not telling the president about this, or standing by, releasing those statements and standing by Porter?
The latter, to my mind. I think that the problem for John Kelly is that it is only now that he is saying, well, I took action as soon as I knew there were credible allegations. You're making the word credible do an awful lot of work there, because as far as we understand, John Kelly has known about these allegations for months. I think it was the failure to act promptly that was the first problem, and then the statements that he gave to media, even when there was photographic evidence produced by one of these women that she had at the very least suffered an eye injury that she blamed her ex-husband for.
Right now the White House says that he didn't allegedly offer his resignation. We've heard otherwise in other corners. If he were to resign at some point, is there anybody waiting in the wings?
Well, there are some potential choices. I mean, Mark Meadows, the Freedom Caucus congressman, has been talked about on occasions. So was Mick Mulvaney, who's currently the White House budget director. They are possibilities for Chief of Staff. But the one thing I would say, Rena, is the Trump White House is always going to be dominated by President Trump. That may be the case for all presidents, but President Trump is such a unique personality that any chief of staff has to do his or her job in very unorthodox circumstances.
I want to ask you also about the fact that there are apparently 24 White House staff employees who don't have full security clearance, including his own son-in-law, Jared Kushner, who, according to one report, reads the presidential daily brief with highly sensitive information and intel. What do you make of that?
It seems, again, something that is troublesome. I think it's something that Democrats and Liberals have made a big issue about. It is quite fascinating that so many people do not have clearance, because to some extent, at least in the minds of Democrats, it goes back to the 2016 campaign. The whole issue of Hillary Clinton's emails was about protecting classified information to the extent possible. Now we have a situation where, as you point out, there are people who, according to some reports, are seen very classified or have access to classified information without the clearances that one would expect in that situation. That seems a disconnect, really.
Niall Stanage, always great to have you on set, Niall.
Nice to be.